Okay, if you plan on doing vermicomposting with manure or food waste beyond the hobby level, and you're not hot composting your material first, you're living dangerously. We'll explain why in today's video. My name is Steve Churchill, and this is the Urban Worm Company. There are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and people thinking they can set worms upon a pile of rotting waste and expect them to turn it into worm castings. There's a bit of a mythology around what worms can do. And once people hear that vermicompost is typically, not always, but typically a much higher value end product than compost, they may choose vermicomposting instead of composting and make grand plans to introduce worms directly to fresh food waste or manure. But if your feedstock is something volatile and prone to heating up, like food waste or manure, then the decision isn't whether to do vermicomposting instead of composting, it's whether to do vermicomposting after a partial hot composting process. In other words, even if you choose to use worms to process organic waste, you're going to still have to compost that stuff. Real quick, guys, if you're enjoying this video and want me to make more of them, please like this video, hit subscribe, and click this little bell right here to let you know every time we release a new video. All right, back to the pre-composting. Now, a full soup to nuts composting process takes a long time. You go through a short mesophilic phase, followed by a weeks-long thermophilic or hot composting phase, followed by cooling and then curing. This could take 6 to 9 months end to end. Now, thankfully, vermicomposters, large-scale vermicomposters especially, don't have to wait that long. We put the waste through a 3 to 6 month hot composting process that we call pre-composting. Hey guys, I meant a 3 to 6 week hot composting process. This takes the waste through the hot composting process right until it begins cooling by a couple degrees per day. This process does a few things. First, it kind of cooks out the energy in the pile and reduces the risk of it later heating up on the worms. It reduces volume, it fragments into smaller particles, and it generally makes for a more consistent and more homogeneous feedstock for the worms. And finally, composting, which is mostly an aerobic process, kills any pathogens that tend to flourish in anaerobic or oxygen-starved conditions. So if you're vermicomposting with the intent to either sell your worm castings or use them to grow your own food, this last part's really important because while there's research that indicates that pathogens get destroyed within a worm's gut, you want to make sure your feedstock is as pathogen-free as possible before turning it into worm castings. So pre-composting is not just for the safety of your worms, but for the safety of the end product you're making. These are just not things that the home-scale vermicomposter with relatively small amounts of waste needs to worry about. There's generally not enough waste to sit there, get anaerobic, culture the pathogens, and then worry about that being in your vermicompost. So the reason you would vermicompost on a large scale is because you want a premium end product. If the goal is simply to manage waste, then you're better off just doing composting. And as much as it pains me, I'm a worm guy, to say it, you can process large amounts of waste more quickly with regular old composting. And I'll be honest, a lot of would-be vermicomposters get turned off by the idea because they didn't expect to have to compost, which adds time, labor, and money to the process of making worm castings. But I'd rather have you learn this now than later. Gang, if you're interested in vermicomposting, I've got a great resource for you to download. It's the ebook version of our Ultimate Guide to Vermicomposting, where we cover anything from the basics of vermicomposting, how to start and maintain a worm bin, and more. You can click this little link above my left shoulder and get that guide immediately. And if you're watching this because you're interested in larger scale vermicomposting, perhaps because you're interested in the business, we also have the Urban Worm U business course for folks looking to scale up their worm composting and worm breeding efforts. You can check the first comment to get a link to that business course, but also find a link in the video description. All right, that's it for now, guys. Best of luck with your pre-composting, and we're gonna see you on the next video.